nonstop Vikings talk. It's Purple Daily on Score North and ScoreNorth.com. Purple Daily, presented by Surly Brewing Company.
All right, welcome in to the Saturday Purple Daily Reads the Comments edition of the show here, presented by our friends at Surly Brewing Company and also TCL, one of the world's best-selling consumer electronics brands. They have a new lineup of award-winning TVs delivering the most entertainment with stunning resolution, all at an affordable cost. Enjoy more of the things you love with TCL. We love to dive into the comments and take all of your comments, questions, concerns, critiques, your jabs, your barbs, whatever it might be. You can always hit us up in the Score North app. There's a feedback tab at the bottom. That's a great place. You can send us emails. You can request to be on. Write that down. We can get you guys scheduled. You can also hit us up via the YouTube comment section, Twitter. We are very active on a daily basis on TikTok, the Score North TikTok and Instagram. So you guys ready to hear from the masses here?
Let's do it.
Okay.
Always ready.
Are you ready?
Are you ready? Triple H is back, by the way. He's back after
The game.
a near fatal heart attack or something.
Yeah. My God.
Okay, this is from Elijah Dodd. I love this question via the Score North app. So a couple weeks ago, we did the if you could swap Kirk out for any other quarterback, how much better would the Vikings be? Question. This is kind of the opposite. He said, hey guys, love the show. Let's say we could switch any other player in the NFL for someone, how does he phrase this? Basically, you can pluck any player in the league, non-quarterback, and replace someone on the Vikings roster with that player, but you only get one player to add to this team. Who would that player be? Who would you be replacing, obviously? And how much better would the Vikings be this season?
It's simple for me. Aaron Donald in the middle of that defensive line. If you have, let's assume just for a second, full health. Daniil Hunter healthy, Zadarius Smith bounce back. Aaron Donald is Alan Page-esque. I mean, he is not a good player. He is a first ballot Hall of Fame, great player, MVP type of guy. Aaron Donald, I think, would take that defense and make it potentially dominant, unbelievable. He is off the charts good. He would be my guy.
Donald was the first one that came to mind, but another one, I would honestly just pluck out probably a Patrick Peterson, who I like, and I'd replace him with Jalen Ramsey. And the Vikings, honestly, Matthew Collar suggested this about 3 years ago, too, and it would have made a lot more sense then because I know Jalen's or Ramsey's a little bit more up there in age now, but you get a top cornerback. The Vikings easily, their weakest position, or most susceptible position, I should say, is their defensive backs. Their cornerback room is going to be pretty scarce. Like Cam Dantzler might take a step forward, and that'll be great, but that is really your only shot at having a lockdown corner, in my opinion. So I would probably get Ramsey in here, make life a lot easier on your defensive backs. That's who I would take.
I like those answers. I think it's hard to disagree with the Aaron Donald answer too, but just for the sake of giving you guys a different thought. So the Vikings already have an amazing set of weapons, but what if you were to swap out KJ Osborne for Deebo Samuel? I was going to say, or Tyreek Hill, but let me just stick with Deebo Samuel, a guy that you can put anywhere on the field. You can put him out wide in the slot. You can put him in the backfield. I mean, he had, just as a receiver last year, he had 87 catches for 1,559 yards, 7 touchdowns. And then he also, I don't think he loved doing this, but he also got him the ball out of the backfield on a regular basis. What if you had that type of a trinket weapon, this explosive, elusive guy, in addition to Justin Jefferson and Dalvin Cook and Adam Thielen? And you might say, well, but the offensive line, if it can't block, well, you know what? They only have to block for about a second and a half. And you've got these weapons just spraying out to the field.
Yeah.
No, Kirk would thrive and would probably flirt with an MVP.
I'm kidding. I think Kirk
Stop ripping Kirk Cousins.
I'm joking.
I think this offense, even with kind of a meh or questionable offensive line, would be completely unstoppable by putting Deebo Samuel in here.
Yeah, I love it.
He's basically like the new Percy Harvin. I mean, Percy kind of had a similar role at his peak with the Vikes. Deebo has taken that idea to a degree to the next level. Yeah, Deebo would be unbelievably fun.
He's a rich man's Percy Harvin, basically.
Yeah.
So Elijah, the originator of this question, floats out a couple other ones here too. He says, what about Justin Tucker?
He's reliable. I mean, he's the best kicker in the game.
Dude, he kicked a 66-yarder, right, to beat the Lions.
He's automatic. I'd probably do that.
How much better would the Vikings be with the guys you just added? So let's say they're like a 9-win team now.
Yep.
With Debo, to me, the offense becomes completely unstoppable, and it's an 11-win team.
Yeah.
With Aaron Donald, what is it?
About the same.
About the same.
I think it takes them up at least 2 wins because now your front is phenomenal. So yeah, and Tucker is good. It's just not as much fun to talk about kicker, but with this team, there's no question that would be. It would be nice to have a great confidence that when you sent your kicker on the field, it didn't become a question mark.
No,
he's right about that. I agree.
Okay, then he throws out centers too here. So he throws out Rodney Hudson, but let me throw out. So the number 1 rated center last year was Creed Humphrey from Kansas City. Corey Linsley has been excellent for the Chargers and for the Packers too. So I'll throw out one of those 2 guys. How much better would the Vikings be if you swapped out one of the worst centers in the NFL for one of the best centers in the NFL?
Ooh, I love that
good
question because I don't think I'd give him 2 more wins necessarily. I don't know what a win. Like I don't know. I don't know what the ups because it'd be nice to have a stabilizing force, but could you count on that being worth an extra win, an extra 2 wins? 2 wins seems really high to me.
Yeah.
Because Donald changes games. To your point, Phil, Deebo Samuel would change games. I feel like a center it's much more difficult discussion to say definitively how much that person would change a game.
Yeah. Well, and analytics would tell you, and Vegas would tell you that none of the players we just mentioned are worth 2 wins. That maybe Aaron Donald, but that the only players that are worth 2, 3, 4, 5 wins are quarterbacks. But I think some of it's the cumulative effect that if you put a center in and you no longer have a weak link, then your guards are better, and then maybe your tackles are better, and then your quarterback is better, and so maybe that one player himself isn't worth that, but the effect that sort of trickles down to the rest of the teammates could be worth more wins.
Creed Humphrey, but by the way, and this is what drives you crazy. Creed Humphrey was a 2nd-round pick in 2021 by the Chiefs. Yeah. I believe in the same draft that Bradbury went in the 1st round, if I'm not mistaken, the Saints took their guy who's been very good at center in the 2nd or 3rd round. The point being is this is what drives you nuts about that miss.
Mm-hmm.
They're out there. They don't go ordinarily in the 1st round, and you still got bamboozled and took the wrong.
Well, and maybe Andy Reid, who's one of the great offensive coaches of the last 25, 30 years in the NFL.
Yep.
Maybe just getting into the Andy Reid coaching offensive scheme and ecosystem just skyrockets your chances of being the best version of yourself. Garrett Bradbury deserves some blame for just not being good enough himself, but it's not like he was put in the most advantageous development situation here the last 3 years too, right?
Yeah,
we have to say that. We can't say all these things about, Kirk's being held back by this is the thing, Kirk's being held back by the coaches, but Bradbury's not?
Yeah.
So let's be fair with that.
And Creed sounds like an interior O lineman, right? Creed Humphrey. Like Garrett Bradbury. Sounds like a guy you went to school with. Yeah, 3rd grade. My buddy was Garrett Bradbury. Creed Humphrey sounds like a guy who wakes up with snot coming from his nose and just wants to go out in the front yard and roll around in dirt.
Pours himself a bowl of sharded glass for breakfast.
I don't even know.
Okay, Matt from St. Paul via the Score North app says, do you guys remember the last time the Vikings really beat the crap out of an opponent? I cannot remember the last time this team won a game by 20-plus points.
Phil brought that up.
I don't have it in front of me, but we did a deep dive into this earlier in the offseason.
Yeah.
I think they've had one 20-point lead in a game in the last 40 or something ridiculous. They just, Mike Zimmer's on the record having said, we want to keep games close. And I think he kind of misunderstands. Defensively, you don't want to keep games close. You want to keep the score down for them, but ideally you don't want the game to be close. You want to beat them 31-10 or something.
Right.
But there were so many games. That Cardinals game last year where the offense gets off to a good start and then they just kind of go into conservative mode or take their foot off the gas and then they don't score points in the 3rd quarter. And so, we'll do a deeper dive on this at some point, but this was a huge problem under the previous regime, just not stepping on the gas and blowing teams out when they had chances. It was not a thing at all the last few years.
I'm trying to think of the last one off the top of my head. I can't even do that. Like, just when's the last time that the Vikings just went in and kicked the snot out of the team?
There was a game last year, was it Thursday night against the Steelers, where they were up by like 3 or 4 touchdowns, and then they almost lost. So
Harrison
that would
made
have
the
been one.
play at the end.
Yeah.
That was a nice play.
Yeah.
But like the last one I can recall off the top of my head is it was a game at the Meadowlands at the time that Eli melted down in like 07 and threw a ton of picks, and the Vikings just destroyed them.
There's been, well, it depends on what you think. By
09, the Dallas
that was like a 40-point
game.
win.
The Dallas playoff game, that comes to mind.
Yeah.
The Zimmer era?
Not that many. There's some.
Right.
There's some, but not that many.
You're right.
Reed Willardson via Twitter says, Kirk Cousins is 10-30 when the opposing team scores 30 points or more. Aaron Rodgers is 11-29, so basically the same record when the opposing team scores 30 or more. Kind of crazy to think about that. I'm not a Cousins crusader or anything, but that puts it into perspective when it comes to having a bad defense. This is an interesting stat for 2 reasons. I think the first, this is sort of this is to help Kirk Cousins' case, is that the fact that, if this is right, and I think I saw this from a couple people, but the fact that Rodgers and Cousins have both experienced the same number of 30-point games to have to overcome, and that Rodgers has played a lot more games than Cousins, it shows you that Cousins faces this hurdle a lot more often with his Washington and Minnesota defenses than Rodgers has. So, yes, that's an issue. But here's another way to look at this, too. Okay, so most quarterbacks are going to struggle when they give up 30 points, when the defense gives up 30 points in a game. I mean, Tom Brady probably isn't above 500 when faced with, hey, you got to go score 30 today. So I'll give you that. But if you flip it around and say, okay, most games are scored in the 20s. Like most over-unders are 45 to 50. So like the average score of an NFL game is like 26 to 23 or 27 to 24 or 24 to 21. That's kind of the average. Like teams are combining for like 48 points. So you're not seeing games in the 30s as a regular thing. In games that are under 30 points, according to this stat here that Reed threw out, Rodgers wins 77% of the time. Cousins wins 60% of the time. So over a 100-game sample, if your defense can hold a team under 30, Rodgers is winning 77 out of 100 games. Cousins is winning 60 out of 100 games. So yes, you don't want the defense to give up 30, but in the majority of the games, which are not having to overcome, people over-exaggerate. What are you supposed to do when the defense gives up 30? Well, that's not actually what happens. Rodgers is the dominant force between the two of them when you strip out the bad defensive performances.
Yes, exactly right.
Yeah. Rant G via YouTube says, you guys are missing the whole point on the Zimmer Cousins stuff. Everyone knows Zimmer didn't like Cousins. This is from the Ben Lieber podcast or radio thing that went viral this last week.
Gotcha.
The revelation here is that needs to be highlighted and discussed at length is how Zimmer would not let Cousins become the leader of the team. The Kirk haters always bring up that he isn't a leader. This explains why. Talk about that dynamic. Zimmer not letting him lead instead.
Okay, we did examine this. This frustrates me. If you are a quarterback and you are highly paid, do you know what you have to do the first year that you sign? And by the way, you're not a draft pick, okay? It's different if you're a rookie. Kellen Mond can't do this. Kirk can. You go into Mike and say, Mike, sit down. Sit down, shut up, because we got to solve this problem right now. Because if I can't lead, I can't be effective.
Yep.
This is about ownership. And our problem here that drives me nuts is always looking for an excuse of, well, Mike did this, Mike did that. You know what? Yeah, Mike was a pain in the ass at times. But you know what guys who are strong do, especially when they're in positions like the quarterback position? They say, we got to talk about this, and we got to talk about it now. You might say, well, Mike and Kirk didn't meet till last year. That goes to show you Mike's a bad guy. It shows you a lot about Mike's character. But do you think a quarterback who leads, and by the way, there's a lot of them, like the position itself calls for that. So there's a lot of those guys that they might not be the most talented, but they have the ability to lead. Do you really think that most quarterbacks, again, highly paid, you get the first fully guaranteed contract in the history of the league. The league's been around for a while. Do you think that that person would wait until, what was it, year 4 or 5 of their tenure to say, can we please meet?
Yeah, but this is
Hell
where
no.
And this is where like it's also Zimmer's fault. But too many people people accuse you and I of making things black and white. No, we actually talk a lot about the gray area, mostly gray area on this show. But like to say that dude, he's 34.
Right.
A 34-year-old quarterback in the NFL that makes that much money doesn't need permission to lead.
Well, and you tell Mike what you're going to do. You are making you are making the most money of anybody in the building, including Mike. This is professional sports. This is not PJ Fleck. He didn't recruit you. He didn't want you, and you know that. The day you sign, you know he didn't want you. And you know what you do? You make it very clear to him what you're going to be doing. Mm-hmm. Now, if that's not going to work, that's not going to work. But the problem is, like, we want to blame, we want to pick a boogeyman here. And it's two-sided. These are adults. And that's why when Kirk hems and haws and tells you that that's not leading. Leading is saying, here's what I'm going to do about that. Leading is saying, you know what? Mike's gone. I'm not going to get into what happened, but I'm going to tell you right now, it's a different environment completely. I mean, we have other players. We have offensive linemen talking about that.
I know.
The excuse making. It's okay to butt heads. In fact, I would suggest you do. Because if you don't, a lot of times, what you're doing is very privately going behind the scenes to try and manipulate things. That's not a leader. A leader is willing to take things on.
Did you guys happen to see part 2 of the Derek Jeter documentary last night?
I still got to watch the first 2.
I have not seen the second part. I saw the first part.
Okay.
I really enjoyed it, and he's a leader.
So, all right, spoiler alert here, but I think you'll love this. So, last night was a lot centered around the 1996 and the 1998 World Series runs. 1998, Derek Jeter, excuse me, was 24 years old, and there was a game where David Wells was on the mound for the Yankees. He threw a perfect game against the Twins that season, if you remember. So David Wells was on the mound in a game, and he induces a pop-up, and it was like a key moment in the game or something, and there was a miscommunication between a couple of infielders, and the ball drops, and this guy gets on base. And David Wells throws his arms up in the air and kind of looks out at just demonstratively at the fielders, and like, oh, my God, right? Derek Jeter, by multiple accounts, and he even confirmed this. At the time, he denied that this happened, but now, 25 years later, he told the story on this documentary. 24-year-old Derek Jeter grabs the ball, walks up to 35-year-old all-star David Bleeping Wells, and says, "We don't do that bleep here." Just looks him straight in the eye on the field, like gets right up next to him and says, "We don't do that bleep here."
Yeah.
To a 35-year-old all-star.
Yep.
He didn't ask Joe Torre's permission to lead in that moment, right? He was a leader. So, again, this is not about, you guys only blame Kirk. We're just like, there are many reasons why the Vikings have underachieved in the last 4 years. And I will say this to wrap this point. I think whatever the best version of Kirk's leadership is, it's never going to be Tom Brady, but Kevin O'Connell has a better chance to draw whatever the best version of his leadership out than Mike Zimmer ever did. And that's the indictment on Mike Zimmer, and that's the hope for Kevin O'Connell. But don't just don't just make Kirk out to be this, well, what's he supposed to do? His boss isn't letting him do this. This isn't an accounting firm. This isn't like working at a fast food restaurant or something where you're just like, it's the hierarchy of managers and this. Like, dude, this is professional sports. These are alphas. This is a fast-moving industry. You don't need permission to lead. You're either a leader or you're not. And when you're 34 years old, you kind of are who you are.
And when you're signed in 2018, and you actually, and I think it's been documented now, do not ask to meet with your superior, your boss, until 2021. Yes, that's on your boss too, but that's on you. That's on you. You need to go in and say, we need to meet. And if he hems and haws, I don't know if I have time. You say, no, you're going to make time.
You know what could have solved all of this if those two guys would have gone and sat down and cheersed a couple Surleys together. Just think about how much better it could have been if 4 years ago.
That's exactly right. You know when they should have done it? You know when, boys, they should have done that? They should have done it on the weekend. They should have done it on a Saturday, because that's sort of the dead day, the off day. And they should have also done it during a relaxed time. because a relaxed time is what I like to call the summer of Surly. And that's right, the weekend is here and the summer of Surly is in full swing. And that means it's Logic Bomb time, it's Furious time, it's Supreme time. It's time to go to your liquor store and sort through all of the delicious beers from Surly Brewing and pick yours and enjoy it, whether you're on the pontoon or you're up at the cabin or heck, sitting on your back porch. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you and a friend, you can hash through all your problems over a few Surleys. It makes life better.
Shout out to our friends at Federated too here. So this week, toward the end of, I guess this weekend, the Federated Challenge is going on early next week. I'm sorry, as we record this. And the goal here is to raise money to help Big Brothers Big Sisters. In fact, $44 million have been raised since 2005 to help Big Brothers Big Sisters continue to provide and facilitate one-to-one mentoring relationships for children facing adversity. So if you want to find out how you can become a big yourself and help the cause here, go to federatedchallenge.org. All right, boys, a couple more here on this Purple Daily Reads, the comments edition. Joe Christman chimes in on Twitter. He says, I want to send a passage to read on the show. It's the essence of football from an old NFL Films clip I was watching.
Love it. Love it.
Stadiums are the landmarks on the landscape of professional football. They are the brave yards for some teams, fortresses for some others. They appear forbidding and fraught with pearls for teams on the road through the season.
Football.
Got a 2-point stance on this.
Robert Louis Stevenson once said, it's better to travel in hope than to arrive. Teams arrive in different fashion. Losers arrive storm-tossed. Winners arrive star-kissed. Football poetry at its finest.
Football! Football, yeah! Football! Football! Gotta eat!
Oh, that would have fit perfectly at Metropolitan Stadium in Bloomington, where the Vikings on the frozen tundra taught the Rams so many lessons about the harshness of football in the winter.
Losers arrive storm-tossed. Winners
Rams.
arrive star-kissed.
Football.
That was the Vikings.
That.
Reject
Purple
it.
people eaters. Star-kissed.
It's good stuff. And then I love this one too here. This is from Ira Coleman via the Score North app. I know y'all like doing lists, so here's an idea. You should rank each of the 22 positions, offense and defense, in order of importance in today's game. Just in general for a football team, not the actual like players on the Vikings roster.
Right. Interesting.
Let's just do that real quick here. Okay, so quarterback is number 1, right?
Yes.
What's the second most important position on a football team?
Left tackle.
Ooh.
Left tackle or
say-
edge? I think it's edge.
I think it's edge now. You're right. It's edge. It's edge now today. Yeah,
Okay.
edge.
Defensive.
We're probably not going to have 22. We're not going to do like left edge, right edge. So we'll just
Yeah,
do
yeah.
like groupings.
I would
No,
say,
left edge.
I would say cornerback left tackle or left tackle cornerback. Cornerback's got to be up there though, because if you can't stop the passing game, you're screwed.
I'm gonna say left tackle because
Sure.
you need to be. I think 2 of the top 3 positions have to do with passing the football yourself.
Wide receiver, probably.
So
next
we're going
now?
hold on, quarterback, edge, left tackle,
Sure.
and
Yep.
then
Corner. Wide
would you
receiver.
put corner? I might put receiver above corner in today's NFL. We fight me on that?
I mean, they're both. It's imperative that both are good. That's the thing. So I think it's fine.
Okay, let's go. We'll go corner,
I'm fine with that.
receiver, and then how about right tackle?
Okay.
Because they're kind of different, right? I think we can put guard in one group, but right tackle.
Yeah.
So now we've got guard, we've got running back, guard, tight end.
Oh, you know what we've
Center.
learned in the last 2 years or so? 3-tech, defensive
3-tech.
tackle.
Three
Because if you
tech.
can't stop the run, you're not going to stop nobody.
Okay, so defensive tackle we'll put in here.
Yep, defensive tackle.
I'm going to say tight end.
Okay.
And then that leaves us with, okay, we have guard, center, linebacker,
Running back.
safety, running back.
Yeah, I think running back's the most interchange. I mean, I like Dalvin a lot, but
Yeah.
I think it's at the bottom.
I'm going to go center. I think it's center
Sure, that's
Okay.
fine.
in today's NFL.
Yeah.
And then we've got then you got guard, linebacker, safety, running back, fullback. But sorry,
CJ. It's your birthday, but no thanks.
CJ Ham might play a more important role than we initially thought. I'm just going to throw that out there as we near training camp.
I'm going to say
Don't print that, by the way. Hush, hush.
I'm going to say guard, safety, linebacker, running back. So it would be this. Your top 5 most important positions would be quarterback, edge, left tackle, cornerback, receiver. And then your next 5 would be right tackle, defensive tackle, tight end, center, guard. And then the 3 least important, although that sounds disrespectful, because these are all important, but
I'm not sure
safety, linebacker, running back.
Okay.
And by the way, the amount of money the Vikings have pumped into safety, linebacker, running back over the last few years is ridiculous.
I know. Well, I feel like with Mike that linebacker was probably given emphasis that is more than the league does. But you know what? Same is true. Running back. Like, I mean, they are pumping in. I don't know how many teams probably think the pay for a guy like Zeke Elliott or Dalvin Cook is wise, no matter how good they might be as individuals, based on position pay.
Yeah. So are you guys good with this ranking? Because this is going to be attached to our names for the rest of our lives here. We just disrespected linebackers and safeties quite a bit there.
No, you're ranking them in 2022. I think it's very fair.
Okay.
Like you're not, like, if we transported ourselves back to when I was a youngster, 1975, we would do these totally different, because we'd be like running back.
Yeah, you would probably flip it, right? You want
linebacker,
and it wasn't like, who was that Jack Tatum guy, right? That just decapitated players. He was a safety, right, with the Raiders.
Yeah.
So you got your head hunting safeties, your big neck roll linebackers, and then your bell cow running backs. You'd probably flip this. Maybe quarterback would be toward the bottom. So, all right, there it is. That's Purple Daily reads the comments here. We take your feedback, turn it into a show. And we're looking forward to training camp starting here in just a handful of days. If you could click the subscribe button on the Score North and Purple Daily YouTube channels, then we'll get you daily Minnesota Vikings and Minnesota sports entertainment and discussions on a daily basis. We'll see you guys.